Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another group presentation. We've got Melissa and Jansen here with us. They're going to talk about accreditation. I'll go ahead and turn the time right on over to you guys.
All right. Well, ours is accreditation of healthcare organizations. Change slide, please. So what is accreditation? Accreditation is the process of review that healthcare organizations participate in to demonstrate the ability to meet regulatory requirements and accreditation standards established by a recognized accreditation organization. So in simple terms, it kind of means to meet standards of performance for a certain company. So accreditation reflects on a agency's dedication and commitment to meeting standards that demonstrate a higher level of performance and patient care. So the accreditation standards were built by an industry with providers' needs in mind. So they want to make sure that their facility meets the requirements of a different company. Change slide, please. So why is this important? So basically, it's an opportunity for the individual healthcare facilities to demonstrate their dedication for quality towards their patients. And then when these requirements are met, it can show a distinction between themselves and their competitors, and also that they're continually improving and they have that desire. Change slide. So is this mandatory or voluntary? It is actually voluntary. You don't have to do it as a healthcare administration. And change. So what is the basic process? So you have to first create your account and have to know what those standards are. And then step 2 is you're gonna submit an application and deposit. And you're gonna have to then sign the accreditation agreement. And step 4 is submit your checklist and indicate your readiness. And then step 5 is participate in an online survey. And then 6, you'll receive your accreditation. And change slide. So, and then how does this relate to the board certification for physicians? So this is for when you're first becoming a physician. First of all, you have to have your undergrad or your pre-medical education, and that's normally about 4 years. And then after that, you can earn your medical degree, your MD or DO. And then after that, we're gonna have about 3 to 5 years of full-time experience in a kind of a residency training. And then there'll be letters after that from their programs or directors. And then you can have a medical license to practice in the United States. And then also sometimes they have an examination you have to take or whatever they require for that board. Change slide, please. And then pretty much how they're similar. Both of them are quite a long process. And then they both require you to be continually certified every few years or whatever they require. And change slide.
All right, so I will be talking a little bit about the International Organization of Standards, or in other words, ISO. ISO is an independent, non-governmental international organization that brings together experts to share knowledge and develop voluntary standards. Their central almost station is in Geneva, Switzerland, just a fun fact. Over the years, they've published over 21,000 international standards. And standards, they're a little confusing. It's hard to look up the real definition and what they mean by standards. But a little thing that they explained about standards were that they give specifications for products and services to ensure the quality, the safety, and efficiency of these products, of the companies. Just a very wide, a very wide aspect of all sort of organizations and materials that everybody uses. They're also instrumental in facilitating international trade as well. A little more information about them is that they deal with everything from capacitors and electronics to company certifications, including medical facilities. When you look up the information about ISO, they are founded on the question of what's the best way of doing this. So when we go out and think about the things that we do on a regular basis, a lot of that is based off of the International Organization of Standards and what they have seen as being fit to help those around us. Governments also count on the ISO to help develop better regulations for different facilities and different organizations and responsibilities. Next slide would be awesome. So what does it have to do with accreditation? When you look at the ISO certification recognizes high quality, consistent service across an entire network. It requires health professions to demonstrate the highest standards of organization and operations. So the ISO, it develops certifications, but it doesn't certify just like in the certification realm, I guess is what you can say. The other certification bodies or companies, they go about to create these certifications, and then the ISO takes that and they make it possible for people to receive those certifications through application process. And something that we don't have on the slides, but that is important to talk about, is there's a local business, well, a local hospital here in Rexford called the Madison Medical Hospital, Memorial Hospital, and they use ISO 9000, and so they seek after it in their, I guess, in their introduction to the hospital on their website. They talk about how ISO 9000, which pertains to the organization there. They say it is the most sought after recognition for quality outcome management by international healthcare organizations. So a national healthcare coalition that advocates for patient safety and improved transparency and safety in hospitals gave Madison Memorial an A rating. And so you can see that through these two organizations, including ISO, that they received somewhat of a certification, but almost like a go-ahead to that said they were well enough and that they had a good enough organization to run a hospital. And that's all that information about that.
All right. Thank you for that. You ready for a couple questions?
Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
Okay. So let's first of all, we're talking about accreditation. What have you realized is the main difference between like an ISO accreditation versus a JCO?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, a lot of it has to do with, the actual accreditation and how ISO is not really much of a certification as it is more of a, oh man, I'm trying to find the word. It's more of an okay. It says it's an agreement that this organization, this material process equipment fits the standards of ISO standards, I guess.
Okay. Why would someone choose ISO as an accreditation body rather than JCO or Joint Commission? There's a number of different type of accrediting bodies. The two big ones that you'll hear most about is Joint Commission and the ISO. And I realized for your presentation that I think as a part of the prompt, they didn't want you to go too much into Joint Commission, mainly because another group is doing it. But what would you say would be a reason why they might choose ISO, which you researched on and you talked to hospital about and all that stuff, versus Joint Commission?
I guess just a simple answer to that would be that with ISO, it's more of a fast process. With accreditation, it takes a longer time to receive that certification or the arrangement that they're certified. And so with ISO, they reach out to that organization and and they say, well, so the organization reaches out to ISO, and through that, then the ISO looks through what they have, and they determine whether they are good enough to, to run an organization or to be a part of their product.
Okay, another question for you, and Melissa, I think you had mentioned this, that accreditation is not necessary.
Yeah.
So why would, let's just flip it a little bit. What would be a reason for a physician to not be, or I guess a hospital to not be accredited?
Well, kind of to be accredited means that they fulfill these higher standards, and so that their patients can know that they are working towards something better. So I guess if they aren't accredited by a certain organization, you wouldn't know exactly where their standards are at. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, so what would there be any advantage for a hospital to not be accredited?
It wouldn't show bias towards a certain company, or towards certain standards, but I wouldn't see an advantage in that.
Okay. Would you be okay with going to a hospital that isn't accredited?
Probably not, because you don't know exactly what you're going to get yourself into.
No, I think that's a fair statement. I think kind of like what you were saying, as you guys were actually both talking about, was accreditation has standard that's set. I think maybe even a good comparison would be the missionary standards that you have. You know, you've got a certain way or lifestyle that you need to be living to be eligible to go on a mission. And it wasn't, I guess now it was a long time ago, that they raised the bar and they raised the standards of it. Accreditation can be somewhat similar in that it at least lets you know that a hospital is working to meet these standards, which are higher above than like what the minimum standards. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so kind of like what you were saying, Melissa, is that if you know that a hospital is accredited, say by Joint Commission or by the ISO, whatever else, you know that they are working to meet those standards. Doesn't mean the hospital is going to be perfect. Doesn't mean you may not have issues or whatever else, but at least it's striving to do that. You know, there's a lot of stringent things that go in along with it. I know when I've worked at the hospital and we know that Joint Commission is coming, it's a stressful month, because we're trying to make sure everyone's in compliance, the hospital needs to be the way it is, and all that stuff, because they do look for certain standards and that we need to meet it if we're going to be accredited by that body. On the same hand, it's expensive. You know, for if you're a hospital, and maybe even you're a struggling hospital, it seems hard to put so much money into someone telling you that you're either doing something right or you're doing something wrong, when you could live up to those standards, or you could set those standards yourself and be sure that you're kept to it without an organization coming in and telling you. So that's kind of the flip side of it all. But great job with your presentation. Is there anything either one of you would like to add before I let you go?
I think I'm all right.
We're good, thanks.
Okay, I appreciate the time and effort you put into that and hanging out with me. And great job. And I'll get this posted for all the students to see at the beginning of next week.
Wonderful.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, enjoy your weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.